Shelanski, government should be as transparent as possible. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's when we make laws, that's why we have debate, that's why we have a Congress, that's why we have elections. We want it to be as transparent as it possibly can be. And that's what OIRA is all about, right? The agencies have certain rules that they put together. You don't necessarily look at the rule itself so much. You look at make sure they did the process right, the transparency process, and they followed what they're supposed to do when they arrived at the rule they arrived at. Is that right?
We look very closely at the substance.
You look closely at the substance as well, but mostly the process, right?
No,
both of them.
Both of them.
Even better. Even better. All right. So the General Accounting Office just issued a report where they talked about the number of agencies who issue rules without public notice and without public comment. The report's entitled, "Agencies Often Publish Final Actions Without Proposed Rules," dated just last month, February 26, 2015. And in that report, they say that the OIRA staff have regularly questioned agencies' use of the good cause exception. So now I just want to make sure I understand this completely. Transparency is the norm. That's what we want. When agencies make rules, they're supposed to have a public notice, public comment period, correct?
Correct.
All right? But there are exceptions to the Administrative Procedure Act where you don't have to necessarily do public notice and public comment. Is that all accurate?
There are some exceptions.
Some exceptions, right. And the GAO is saying we got too many of those. Too many times that's happening. This is their report. But they said when it does, your staff has assured GAO, and I'm quoting directly from their report, OIRA staff have regularly questioned agencies when they use the good cause exception. Is that accurate?
So let me, the answer is yes, it is accurate.
Okay, so I just want to, again, just be clear. When agency says we're not going to do this the most transparent way, we're going to deviate around the normal process. There's an exception for not having public comment, public notice, public comment. But you look at that when they do those exceptions, correct?
So let me tell you what we do.
I want to know if that's a yes or no, though, if you could.
There are times when we have a basis for questioning that. There are times when we do not. There are statutes that authorize the use of what are called interim final rules or direct final rules.
The report says you regularly question agencies' use of good cause exception. So when they deviate from the process, you regularly ask them questions. What I want to know is, in those situations where you don't, is that just a handful of times? Is it 10% of the time? What's the time?
So the times when agencies seek to get around public comment and not to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking, but to go directly to some kind of final rule are very rare. Okay,
very rare. All right, now I want to get to the specific example that's just been in the news just this past month. The Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, has a recent proposal to ban certain type of ammunition. You familiar with this?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. And they have said they are not going to follow the normal process, the most transparent process. They're going to deviate from that, and they're not going to have public notice and public comment. And they're citing for good cause that notice and public procedure therein are impractical, unnecessary, or contrary to public interest. And what I want to know is, has OIRA given the ATF the thumbs up to follow the exception and not do the norm, the most transparent thing, and have public notice, public comment?
So the first thing I would notice is OIRA does not review all federal rules, all executive branch rules. There are thousands of such rules. We review about 500 a year.
That's fine. I'm asking about one in particular. I'm asking, did you review this? Did you say to ATF, it's okay if you don't follow the normal public notice, public comment?
So it would not be our place to say that to ATF if that rule was even ever submitted to OIRA. I should make clear, when an agency does submit a rule to us that it seeks to do by a means other than the standard APA process, that is when we have occasion to question that agency.
So you didn't have any, you've had no influence, no say on ATF's decision not to follow public notice and public comment. Do you expect to have any say in their decision not to follow public notice, public comment
As I say, I'm not familiar with this particular regulation, so I cannot comment
Well, lots
on
of
it.
Americans are familiar with it, Mr.
But what
Shelanski.
I will tell you is that any such determination by an agency is judicially reviewable under the Administrative Procedure Act, and lots of Americans, as you put it, would have recourse to the courts to challenge that determination.
Well, yeah, that's after the fact. Well, what you're supposed to be is on the front end. I know that. Everybody knows after the fact we can take action, but that's costly. That takes more time. The whole idea is that on the front end, we're supposed to get it right. That's what I'm asking you. Did you have it? Do you plan to check out this rule?
It is not either the role or the scope of OIRA to go to every agency for every rule in the federal government and to second-guess their legal process.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chairman, then I'll stop. But I'm reading from the GAO report, which says your staff regularly question agencies' use of the good cause exception. Here's an agency using the good cause exception, and you're telling me we have not questioned them, and we never plan to question them, and oh, by the way, if you don't like it, Americans, take them to court.
What I told you was I would look at that very closely if the rule were submitted to OIRA. I don't know if this rule was ever submitted to OIRA. I can't question a rule that has not been submitted to my office.
Mr. Shelanski, and that's the problem.
There's no circle.
If the agency says we're not going to submit it to you, then you say, well, we don't have to review it, even though they're not being transparent, not following public notice, public comment.
If a rule is, so as I think I made clear, we don't review all federal rules. Where we question, what the GAO report is referring to, is when we question agencies that have submitted the rule to us for review, or where it is a rule
well, that's
that we
great.
review.
That's great. I would love not to have. I mean, so they don't even have to give it to the authority who's going to tell them whether. And you said in your opening comments, we're going to look at the procedure they use and the substance. I disagree with both what the ATF did here, both the procedure and the substantive change. This has been a rule that's been in place since 1986, and they suddenly are just going to change it, and there's no review process.
So there is a review process. There's the agents. First of all, the agency is responsible for that policy.
They've already told us what they're doing.
If it's an interim final rule goes out for public comment after it's enacted, so there is a chance for public comment.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
there's judicial review.
Yeah,
I don't see
judicial
all
review,
of the
that's helpful.
4,000
Mr. Chairman, I
rules.
apologize. Thank you for your indulgence on the time, but we've been running circles around this, and this is just not transparent the way it's supposed to work for the American people.